All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, March 25th. So, what did we get today for price action? Well, a little bit all over the place today. We still had the S&P finish up 1.5% for the day. The real outperformance was in the Dow. That was basically pretty much the majority of that game was Boeing. Remember, the Dow is a price weighted index, only 30 names, and the largest names get the largest price names are the biggest weight, so they can really kind of push things around, and that's what happened with Boeing today. Congrats if you were long any Boeing from the low. Not something I participated in, but congratulations if you did. Small caps, they finished up 85 basis points. And yeah, I'm surprised to see the S&P was up 1.5% today, but it did hold in there fairly decently, and you could see that there was some decent uh, difference between the indices because you could see the Qs actually got hit pretty hard today. Some of that was Apple at the end of the day. There was also a number of other stocks that I saw in tech and in the semis that were weak at the end of the day. So, bottom line, just to kind of sum up this video before I go through some of the details, this was a nice trading day again if you can be very nimble with what you're doing. And the main thing that I think is the tell right now is what the VIX is doing. The VIX never went below, even though we've seen this bounce from the lows yesterday, right? I think that was what a lot of people were questioning was why was the VIX still hanging around yesterday? And today it was up. It was up 3.7%. Now it accelerated at the end of the day. Here I've got the 5-minute bar, and then I'll bring up the daily in just a second. But it's basically was hanging around all day today, so it did not break down, and that should be a signal that should be going off in your head, because this VIX really should be going down. Like if this was a bounce that's kind of telling us we're getting out of the woods and we're turning the corner, and reversing the downtrend, the VIX I think would be below 40 at this point, but it's not right now. So you kind of take it for what it is, and you use this to kind of trade a little bit. And we can look at the VIX here in the daily chart. And again, please do not use the VXX. The VXX is a complete piece of garbage. I normally don't share my opinion so strongly on something, but the VXX is not meant for professional traders. It is a replication. It is trying to replicate the VIX. And I know it's liquid, and retail traders get drawn to it because they think it's sexy or something, but it's a piece of garbage. So please do not use the VXX in any of your analysis. It is the worst tracking of the VIX that is possible out there. So professional traders use the VIX. So this again, if we look at this, right, one of the things that I had said earlier was first things first is that this thing has to duck under the 5 period moving average. I talked about this in yesterday's video, saying kind of crazy looking bar. There must have been a bad print in this thing yesterday, but it's holding the 20 period moving average. So just like when you see this when you're trading a stock and it breaks out, and sorry, let me just get out of this, and it breaks out like this, and it comes back and sits back to the 20-day moving average, that's kind of support. So that's what you have going on right now for the VIX. So it is not making, now on the positive side, it is not making right now, like it is not taking back any major price, right? I would say if this thing got back above 75, like look out. But it's not so far. It's the one thing you could say is it's not making a new high. So again, going back to like how we're trading this market, given this situation, it's basically on a day-to-day situation, right? I see a lot of traders out there trying to think if this is like if there's a bottom that's going to be in and so forth. I don't know any of that. I'm just basically looking to kind of position, looking at some single stocks where the setup is pretty good, and that's it. You're not going to be able to, even though again I try to look for clues in the market and know and observe things that are changing with the with the technicals and some of the indicators and internals underneath the hood, because they can give some nice clues. But bottom line is, you're just not going to be able to figure this thing out like every single day, right? You're going to have maybe a good sense, picking up on some of the clues, but it's still, you're not going to be 100% certain on what this thing is going to do. And what we've been saying now for weeks is, the only thing, we've got still a lot of headlines, going circling around the markets. We get an update on new corona cases every day, and people are looking for them to really start to slow or increase at a decreasing rate. And then the other thing is, you get these politicians going back and forth with this stuff. So we can't control that, right? And I think that's really frustrating, traders, because it seems to be like two steps forward and one step back, or maybe even, worse than that. But, this to me gave a great opportunity. So we'll, in terms of putting on some day trades, but not getting, super greedy. Again, that's the whole thing in this market right now. Singles, doubles, but to get a home run in this market right now is very difficult. And I know some people got a few home runs yesterday, but here is a good example. I traded BABA right in the beginning of the day, right? We saw a little bit of call activity. I have been looking at the Chinese stocks for a bit, and sometimes when I see call activity on the tape, it kind of pushes me in a little bit into the trade, because I've already done my research, right? That's the whole thing that we do at Tribeca Trade Group, is we do the research, and I look for, I went through last night. If you look at my Twitter feed last night, I talked about a couple other names like Team. I traded that one today too. So you have to do the homework, and I don't rely on just call activity. I think of call activity as it could provide a little bit of short-term momentum, but other than that, I really don't use call activity for much more than that, because the majority of these guys, again, are wrong, right? So we saw BABA calls beginning of the day. Now, where I wanted this thing to get to, so notice we went to R1 and R2, and the market webs are pretty much giving us, everything that we need to do, in terms of support and resistance. Now, my ultimate target was 197. I got to 195. I mean, so that's not perfect, but that's why I kind of forced a couple targets in there this afternoon, especially when we have this. Like, if you're not taking targets into something like this, and even though my goal was to get to almost 198, but hey, all it takes is a headline, right? And by the way, this doesn't look horrible for setup tomorrow, but you could see what I did here. Again, I like to give you real life examples. Here is my setup in the beginning of the day, which is what I was basically showing what I was looking at. And then where I finally got out, I took a target at BABA 195. So it almost got to that 198. But hey, that's a heck of a trade. And then my last piece, right? I sold that. I hit my trailing stop. Again, I was trying to hold to get that last target, but if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And then the other setup that, and again, there's plenty of other setups that. Some of the traders were playing in this room. Some names are continuing to act very well on this bounce. Again, it kind of felt like some names that were performing very well were, those names that felt like, again, like short covering type trades. But Team was a great little trade, and I set this thing up perfectly, and well, it worked perfectly, I should say. I don't want to say I set it up perfectly, but I said I'm starting a swing here in Team. Again, and I'm always defining my stop. It was a pretty far away stop I had on that, but here's the 1 hour, and I said I'm looking for this to go to 145. So again, every time I get into one of these trades, I'm setting my stop, and I'm setting where I'm going to get out of it, right? So if you plan this ahead, I put the wrong symbol in here. If you plan what you're doing ahead of time, rather than in the heat of the moment, you're going to do a little bit better in this. But why did I say 144? We'll wait for this to adjust, because that was the bottom of value, right? So I was basically looking for a bounce into resistance. I got it, and I checked out of this trade at 144. This thing closed at 139. So again, It's a pretty ugly looking candle at the end of the day, but the end of the day was a bit of mess. And then the whole challenge is after you have a couple trades like that, because one of the things that I mentioned was for the month, I'm now actually, in my trading account now positive for the month. It's my fault at this point, not the market's fault, if I give it back. I tried a very small trade in PDD. I thought this had a chance to kind of get to this virgin point of control. It didn't get there. It actually worked for a little bit, and then I stopped myself out at the end of the day. But that's it. That's it for the trading, right? If you get two trades like that work, and you're hanging around like trying to push, to get a little bit to try to earn more, like that's where you're wrestling with yourself and with greed, right? So you have to kind of take what you can get from this market right now, and if you make a couple good trades, I'm of course going to be committed because I'm running a trading room all day long. But if you're not, go have a long lunch. I don't know, have a drink or something. Well, maybe not. I don't want to encourage that, but have a have an afternoon coffee. Go out and feed the ducks when you have something like that work. But really, that's the difference between being profitable right now in this market versus over trading and giving back your gains and being pissed at the end of the day. So that's it. I have a couple other things that I thought were notable for the day. We covered the VIX already, but also, this relationship between IWM, right? So again, I think it's a good thing to see, the Qs have been really performing well, but they need to take a break every now and then, right? I hope you would agree with that too. You don't want to see these things, one group get so far ahead of other groups and get more and more overbought, because what happens is if they get overcooked like that, then what happens is they're going to get hit at some point because it'll be nasty profit taking. So it's good to see these rotations. And it's just how it works in trading, right? So IWM is starting to outperform a little bit. Also, if you want to look at if we want to look at SPY versus Qs, or Qs versus SPY, whichever way you want to look at it. But you could see as well the Qs, got pretty decent, decently ahead of itself, and SPY's been outperforming a little bit. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. To see that kind of come back into play, you just have to be aware of these relationships so that you don't, get caught in the wrong names. Also, of course, let's see where this one, credit spreads finally moved today. There's a big move in HYG, but I didn't see how these things finished for the day. So let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, I mean this is really good to see, right? Credit spreads, which that was another thing again that I had been calling as a negative the last few days, was that credit spreads were widening, meaning that there's more risk in the system. Well, this narrowed today, so this was kind of showing a little bit more risk on today. So again, we don't want big risk in the fixed income market. That can really put a wrench into things if the credit spreads continue to widen, right? So, and I think mainly, I know a lot of people like to make fun of, for whatever reason, all the efforts of the Fed and the quantitative easing. They just, they're not there, in my opinion, to prop up the equities. They're there to kind of help out this fixed income market and the liquidity concerns in the fixed income market. So I know everybody likes to joke on Twitter, oh, look at they're buying, the plunge protection and so forth. What they're really there, I mean, they're out there buying LQD, right, which is investment grade bonds, right? They're worried about the liquidity. I've showed you guys this before as well. This is LQD. And oh, sorry, the phone's going off here. Let me just turn that off. But this was trading. It's not turning off. How do I turn this down? There we go. Volume is off. So this was trading at a discount, meaning the price of the ETF was trading at a severe discount, which was showing basically that people were really pushing this thing down in comparison to where the underlying bonds. Look at the inflows that have been going on the last couple of days. So again, that's just my thoughts on this, and a huge whopper of a day in these high yield ETFs. So really, really strong. All right, guys. So we'll leave it there. Again, kind of end of day thoughts. Now we're going to be heading into the end of the week. We know that these end of the weeks have been even more trickier. Fridays have been really difficult. Remember, you heard me whining on Friday's video because it was really tough price action. So I would say be careful about taking unnecessary risk. And again, the main thing that I've been saying over the last weeks, but over the last couple weeks, and I don't think I've said it this week, so I'm going to hit you with it again, is that this continues to, while the VIX is above 50, even above 40, it's a day trader's market. Don't try to think it's something different than that. Now you can, again, in the way that I've been tackling this market is basically doing day trading in my trading account. Maybe adding one or two overnight trades, throughout the week. And then also my long-term account, I've thought that this is a good place, as Tepper said, to do some nibbling. So that's kind of like just a two-pronged attack right now to what I'm doing in this market. I'm looking at it either long-term or taking it for what it is with the VIX this high and day trading. All right, guys, have a great night and see you tomorrow.